And yeah, it's a norm. I mean, building mobile apps when you want to build a product, building a mobile app is a no-brainer right now. But imagine how it was back then when mobile devices just came into the scene. Yeah, so this was, mostly the mobile era, and of course, the wide adoption led to the permanence that we are currently used to. Then, of course, there was the decentralized era. When we talk about decentralization, I think to a layman, the most obvious thing is crypto. Yeah, I mean, it's majorly to fix, a problem with, financial transactions, record keeping, and whatnot. But then the application went further than that. It's used in health. It's used in, a lot of other sectors now. Yeah, but this was also, a moment in time, and there was all the, but I think pre-COVID, I mean, there were a lot of talk about, NFTs and, what you can do with crypto and whatnot. Yeah, so, yeah, that's pretty much what constituted most of the decentralized era, which we are still in, by the way. Yeah. So, and of course, we're in the AI era, heavily in the AI era. As Toby mentioned, these are all icons we are familiar with right now. Claude, Gemini, Chat, GPT, etc. So, quick one. It was a major change, and there were a lot of very obvious positives, some of which we'll be talking about shortly. Kelly, right? Kerry touched on it, Toby did as well. So, of course, when we're writing, when we're building software with AI, there are so many very obvious positives. You have faster development cycles. You're able to, build stuff faster. You get blocked less. Then the code quality is, improved compared to, if a human is writing it. Then better documentation. This is also one of the things I've enjoyed, with AI documentation, from, readmes to text specs to name it. AI does a very, very good job at it. Then, of course, unit test generation and coverage. So since we are mostly mobile, you can they do a better job and a faster job as well than, most humans would in a very short time. Then refactoring at scale, accelerated onboarding, new engineers, then detecting security vulnerabilities. So these are some very obvious positives of, building software with AI. Then, of course, we have the not so positives. A lot has already been said about all of this, so I'll just go through it real quickly. So hallucination, I think that's one of the most obvious not so positive. They tend to hallucinate, most especially when they're not given enough context. But sometimes even when you give context, it still hallucinates, and you're like, what the hell? Yeah. Then security and privacy leaks. So we know the way these things work, right? These things work, from data that they were trained with. Yeah, so if you expose your keys or whatnot, or it might not even be something on that sensitivity scale. If you expose anything that you are not meant to expose, it gets included in training data, and you don't know where that goes. Then number 3 is something I want to emphasize a little bit on: the loss of problem-solving skills. Might be a little bit difficult to explain, but I'll try. So when you're writing code, sometimes you run into issues. Like basically, you sometimes run into issues and you solve them. Then you encounter the same issue maybe in the future, and you know how to solve it based on the past experience. Then sometimes maybe you've been working at the company for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years. You have a lot of business context that comes with writing the code and everything. Slamming everything on AI